There is finally a sense of urgency about the climate crisis. We need to be making large cuts in emissions over a span of years, not decades. A rapid shift to car-free cities makes this possible. Let's consider how to do it. Cities built during the rail era will be easy to convert. For instance, New York, London, and Tokyo still make intensive use of rail systems, despite heavy car use today. Between 1890 and 1930, streetcars became ubiquitous in U.S. cities. Tracks were simply laid down the middle of major streets. As with most U.S. cities, Houston's streetcars were central to its early growth. In 1927, the city had 90 miles of track and 24 routes, and suburban development relied on streetcar extensions. Houston's conversion to an auto-centric city began in the 1930s with a rapid shift from streetcars to buses. In just a decade, public transport use plunged from 80% to 15%. Trolleys, as they were often known, provided fast, frequent, and inexpensive public transport that imposed modest burdens on the community in exchange for essential service. After World War II, they were quickly replaced by diesel buses. Public transport use plummeted as people bought cars and moved to the suburbs. Although street-running trolleys remain common in Europe, only a few can still be found in North America. Streetcars are the cheapest way to provide good public transport, at least when both direct and hidden costs are reckoned. Battery-powered streetcars, already in service, change the equation. They eliminate the ugly, expensive overhead power supply. Charging points are needed only at the end of the line. A picture of car-free conversions thus begins to emerge. Corridors to receive streetcar service will be defined, with service implemented in just a few years. Streetcar lines would radiate from the city center. Just 8 evenly spaced lines are sufficient to serve a good-sized city. At greater distances, lines can branch to provide service to the outer city, with plenty of open space in the more distant areas. In order to provide fast service, streetcars must not stop too frequently. Stops about a 10-minute walk apart are ideal. The lines will serve a wide area on either side of the track. Passengers some distance from a stop can use an e-bike to reach it. Over time, the most frequently accessed destinations will relocate near streetcar stops, and particularly in the city center. This was usual until about 70 years ago. Freight is the most difficult problem in car-free cities. Urban freight systems that deliver standard sea containers throughout the city should be affordable in new construction, where existing utilities do not interfere with the work. Such a system is probably too expensive in existing urban areas. In existing cities undergoing a car-free conversion, patchwork freight arrangements will be needed. Different cities have different resources and widely varying requirements. For instance, Chicago's network of freight tunnels was abandoned decades ago, but could probably be restored. Some use of slow electric trucks will usually be required. A heavy mileage tax would hold the number of trips to a minimum. In low-density outlying suburbs, areas near streetcar routes will be selected for infill development. Post-war suburbs were laid out with broad rights-of-way. In some jurisdictions, all of this land was deeded to the municipality. It would be feasible to construct housing, shops, and offices on this land. The change would be contentious, but many suburbs are struggling to pay for infrastructure replacement, which is much more expensive than the original greenfield installations. The obvious solution is to spread these costs among more residents. Given that car-free cities have low emissions, low costs, and the best quality of life, widespread car-free conversions are essential to tackle the climate crisis. We know how to do this, and it's time to get started.